Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, but you can call me Bunny Wigglesworth.
Hey, I thought we agreed not to call each other that in public. How dare you, sir?
I love that name. Bunny Wigglesworth is a name to remember.
Well, let me tell you, what we like to remember is the people that go to patreon.com/HMP and help support this show. Every single month we say, hey guys, what do you want us to review? We give you a couple of choices, and you, the voting public, actually gets to choose what we watch. And for some reason, I'm sure that he's going to be the happiest little boy in all of, I forget where he lives. RocketFace has been on the train for Zorro the Gay Blade forever, and sure as shooting, it was a tie, so we figured, hey, let's do this Zorro movie and get this out of the way so he can stop screaming about, please, Zorro the Gay Blade. We get it.
I'm just going to say this is a good week for RocketFace because I know of a book where he's described as incredibly handsome and charismatic.
Boy, I tell you what, man, he's pulling up aces. This guy's going to be walking 10 feet tall down the road singing his own tune.
Yes.
My, oh, my. Boy, that guy's just rolling. Hey, RocketFace, go out and buy a lotto ticket right now, buddy. I don't think the next week's going to get much better for you, my friend. Just go. You're skyrocketing right to the top, my friend.
Everything's coming up RocketFace.
No kidding. So we're going to be covering that 1981's Zorro the Gay Blade, starring George Hamilton of all people. If you've never heard of this, I can't say that I haven't blamed you.
And Brenda Vaccaro, the woman I loved so much from Supergirl.
Oh, well, I'm sure we'll get to some of that. But yeah, we're going to be doing this. It's going to be an interesting time. Sean is not with us again, but he better be with us next week. And we have an edict at the end of the show that we'll kind of talk about. So, it's all right. It's all right. But we're getting around to our Halloween episode. And if you've ever been around here at HMP on Halloween, you'll want to stick around. I think you may know what's coming up. If you don't, stick around. So any other housekeeping business?
I don't think so, man.
All right.
Well, think of anything.
Well, let's get on into it, my friend. Here is the trailer for Zorro the Gay Blade.
He's sexy, zany, sensational.
You recognize that famous sign, huh?
Oh, yes, senor. It is a number 2.
No, it's the sign of
Zorro. Oh, Zorro!
That is a little more like it.
20th Century Fox and Melvin Simon Productions present George Hamilton. And George Hamilton as
Zorro!
one destiny,
To help the helpless,
2 brothers,
to befriend the friendless,
1 legend,
to defeat the feetless.
2 color schemes.
I found it helps to keep them guessing.
Thrill to the magnificent return of the 2 and only Zorro.
What are you waiting for? Here he is. Arrest him.
Swing with Zorro. Fall with Zorro. And catch a few Z's with Zorro.
You're the bravest man I ever met.
I'm very impressed myself, too.
Out of the night. Out of the past. Out of the legend comes George Hamilton. George Hamilton, Lauren Hutton, Brenda Vaccaro, Ron Liebman. Zorro! And a cast of peasants in Zorro, the Gay Blade.
Heck yeah, they don't make trailers like that no more.
Was that the voiceover guy from the Super Friends?
Ted Knight?
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Meanwhile, we go back here to Zorro the Gay Blade.
It sounds so much like the Super
Here's
Friends.
the IMDb plotline. As we know, I can't do that the entire thing. IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. In 1840s Mexico, wealthy landowner Don Diego Vega learns of the fate of his father's secret, Zorro, the masked folk hero, and Vega adopts his new persona. But when Vega is incapacitated by an injury, he asks Roman, his very gay, long-lost twin brother, now calling himself Bunny, to replace him as the caped hero who makes some drastic changes to his Zorro persona. This is from 1981. This is directed by Peter Medic, starring George Hamilton, Lauren Hutton, Brenda Vaccaro, Ron Liebman, and apparently a cast of peasants for the other people in this. But yeah, it is what it is. Bruce, Zorro has quite the comic book back history, I would think. Yes.
Yes, it does.
Oh,
because
shucks! Hold on. I'll get all kinds of heck if I didn't do it. Now, just at the last second, it felt like you were waiting for it. So. Oh, there we are. Oh, it's like
now
a
I'll start over. Zorro is the Spanish word for fox, but it is also the secret identity of Don Diego de la Vega, a Californio living in Los Angeles during the era of Mexican California. He was created in 1919 by pulp writer Johnston McCulley. And aside from Zorro, McCulley created many other pulp characters, including Black Star, the Spider, the Mongoose, Subway Tham, the Green Ghost, the Thunderbolt, and the Crimson Clown. So, for all practical purposes, Zorro is probably his only product you've ever heard of.
Oh, I'm a big Crimson Clown fan. I don't know what you're talking about, buddy boy. That's not true. I hate clowns.
Zorro is a dashing, black-clad masked vigilante who defends the commoners and indigenous peoples of the land against corrupt and tyrannical officials and other villains. Clearly a superhero before the term was in common vernacular. Chino Cortina, also known as the Red Robber of the Rio Grande, also known as the Rio Grande Robin Hood, was a real person, a Mexican rancher, politician, military leader, outlaw, and folk hero who may have been the inspiration for Zorro. Likewise, Zorro has served as an inspiration for something you may know well. Diego is a wealthy landowner who pretends to be a passionless fop, but at night he dons a dark costume and fights injustice in his city. He has a black costume with a flowing cape, a black cowl, and a legend that strikes fear in his enemies. I hope at this point you know I'm also talking about Batman. Bill Finger openly acknowledged Zorro as the inspiration for many of Batman's traits. The movie Bruce and his folks were leaving was 1920's The Mark of Zorro in the Golden Age origin story. Now the Gay Blade that we're talking about today opens the door to another avenue of comic book discussion, and of course that is a discussion of gay superheroes. Now, for me, the standard bearer for gay characters in mainstream comics is North Star of Alpha Flight. Mm-hmm. This French-Canadian fast-flying figure was part of what I believe may have been the first same-sex wedding in comics. Apollo and Midnighter from Wildstorm Comics were created to answer the question, what would it be like if Batman and Superman were in love? Well, the answer is difficult. Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern, is gay as of the new 52 Earth 2 comic from about 5 years ago, and Iceman has recently come out. I think it's still okay to use that terminology. I do not want to be insensitive on this topic, but he's recently come out of the closet. This was met by mixed fan reaction. Batwoman is gay, and her planned wedding led to a major editorial blunder by Dan Didio at DC Comics. And though he is not a superhero in the traditional sense, this list would be incomplete without the inclusion of Kevin Keller, the first gay character in what was once the world's squarest comic, Archie. Now, I think it bears to point out the representation in Greg Berlanti's television universe. Curtis Holt, Mr. Terrific, is gay, and his relationship is on the rocks due to his vigilante lifestyle in the television show Arrow. Sarah Lance from Legends of Tomorrow is also gay, and she's heartbroken by the loss of Nyssa Al Ghul, but she was able to get over it with Marie Antoinette because it is, after all, a time travel show. Alex Danvers, Supergirl's sister, is planning her own wedding to a woman named Maggie, and though I'm now talking about the actor rather than the character, I can't help but mention that I love Wentworth Miller as Captain Cold, so he gets an honorable mention because Wentworth Miller is, of course, self-identified as gay, and he is a great action television star.
He's such a force on that show that it's just like when he's on it, you're just like he's got that weird delivery that is just so him, and everything he does, he's great.
I eat it up, man. I lap it up. I love it. There are many other characters. I'm sure I've missed a few, but many folks may point out there still aren't enough LGBTQ heroes in comics. But I do think Alan Moore deserves a very distinct honorable mention because he found inclusion of gay characters to be important way before other writers of his stature dared to do so. In Watchmen, Hooded Justice, the man who defends the original Silk Spectre when she is assaulted by the comedian, is gay. Silhouette from Watchmen is also gay. V for Vendetta was written to protest Margaret Thatcher's policies, not the least of which was the mistreatment of gay individuals, and the mistreatment of a lesbian couple seems to serve as the impetus for all the destruction V rains down on the dystopian UK government depicted in V. John Constantine, also a famous Alan Moore creation, is probably my favorite LGBT character in comics, and for some reason TV and movie adaptations of this character seem to desperately avoid this trait. But in the end, the question is not just one of inclusion, but also one of respectful treatment. So, does Zorro the Gay Blade treat Bunny Wigglesworth as a hero or a punchline? I fear the name kind of shows their hand, but we'll discuss it.
Well, yeah. But okay.
Now, to start off, just overall conversation on the movie, kind of big picture stuff.
Okay.
I saw this movie, I don't know, I was maybe in the 3rd grade, maybe younger. You know, I saw it on broadcast television. Absolutely loved every second of it as a pretty young kid. But all the gay stuff was over my head. Like, I had no, I did not recognize what was going on there. I honestly thought that Bunny was just a depiction of what British people were like. Like, I just assumed that all British people were kind of flamboyant. You know, I did not know that his choice of a romantic partner's gender had anything to do with it. I just thought, oh yeah, seems about right. That's what British people are like. You know, the only point of reference in pop culture for me at this time would have been Klinger from MASH, and, you know, just his antics to try to get dismissed from the army. Not that he was actually a gay character, but he liked to wear women's clothing or whatever. And I just thought some people like to get attention by doing that, and I thought Bunny Wigglesworth was just an English person. I had no idea.
You hear that, English people? I'm
talking about you, Marty. Marty Wigglesworth.
Oh, what I wouldn't give to see Marty in a dress, though.
I bet you he's worn a dress before.
Oh, I'm sure that he has. I want to see it, though.
Yeah. You know, the tradition of English pantomime with men dressing up to play women's roles for humorous purposes. I think there's a long tradition of that. I'm sure that Marty has participated.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think there's a law of, like, you have to have it done at least once within the time before you're 15. So, you know, I think that's pretty much a rule.
But, you know, ultimately, it might have been this movie that kind of led my mom to explain to me what a gay person was. Mm-hmm. And it was at a time and in a place where maybe people weren't as enlightened about gay folks as they are now. Because I know my mom didn't really seem to be woke, if you'll allow me to use the vernacular.
I shouldn't, but I'll allow it this once.
But it wasn't until Will and Grace came on. And then once Will and Grace came on, she was flying that rainbow flag, man. She loved that show and totally had a new respect for all people after that.
That Jack character is off the chain. Mom, stop saying these words. Like, every bit of it is just, you should just not do it for everyone's sake.
Anyway, so a whole lot of this was over my head. I loved this movie so much. It was on broadcast television. I feel like they showed it more than once a year on broadcast television. And I taped it. And I don't mean VHS, because my household did not have a VCR at this point in time. I actually took a cassette player with 2 cassette tapes, pushed play and record, and set it in front of the TV's little speaker and just recorded the audio track of this movie. And I would sit in my bedroom and listen to it. That's how much I loved this movie as a child.
Like, all of our young listeners just heard this right now and just go like, what kind of old grandpa man is this?
Hey, man, it's a combination of old and poor. You know, it's
That's
not just
true.
It takes a little bit of both columns to have a situation like that.
It's just like, look, man, I'm old, also poor, though. There's a difference.
If I was old and rich, I would have had the laser disc.
I don't know that I would have. Here's the thing. I had never really heard of this movie. I did not know what to expect going in. For me, even, you know, just on account of, I guess I took Zorro the Gay Blade to just mean, like, I don't know, maybe it's a happy blade, and then it's just like, oh no, we're squarely going down this alley.
That's entirely how I saw it as a kid. Was he was just happy. I mean, I'm playing with my friends, and I'm whipping out.
Uh-oh.
Or I'm Zorro the Gay Blade. Chop, 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 chop. That's probably when my
Bruce.
I totally took this from a perspective of innocence. Not to mention that I won't even go down the avenue of how much brownface takes place in this movie.
Well, that's a big thing, and let's talk about that. I mean, because it is back in. I mean, here's the thing. While 1981 doesn't sound like that far away, it still kind of was. I mean, there's even a bit of it, maybe not quite, to this level or anything. But
Short Circuit. What year was Short Circuit? Because that's like full on brownface for a punchline in Short Circuit.
That's in the 90s, isn't it? Late 80s, early 90s?
It's at least late 80s. I'm thinking 88 on. So this movie is years before Short Circuit just throws all caution to the wind with the concept.
Yeah, but and that's the thing though, in that by and large. So let's talk about this. I got to look up Short Circuit. You just got my brain in a.
Well, I will say this, man. It's easy to forget that George Hamilton was actually quite the dashing, attractive actor in 1981.
86 Short Circuit.
Okay, so this is 5 years before Short Circuit, also before Tootsie. So all kinds of stuff going on in the world after this. So this is not an egregious offender by any means, because other higher profile things did worse later on.
Well,
but George Hamilton, man, not only a pretty darn handsome guy in 1981. First off, I wasn't sure if he was in brownface or that's just his tanning bed look.
That's a good question, because here's the thing, and that's part of me actually thought the whole time. I was just like, oh, so they just got the most tan man in Hollywood, so they didn't have to go through and do any makeup or anything. They may have darkened him up a touch.
Well, because Bunny is not dark at all.
Well, exactly, or that could be just also
powdered
makeup on him. So you could go either way. But like if you look at the Don Diego, that looks more like George he looks like today.
Yeah. But also, I mean, it really the villain of the show. I mean, by the last name Lieber, I'm going to guess he is probably not Hispanic. You know what I mean?
No, he's not.
He's like Stan Lee's nephew or something, because Stan Lieber is his full name. But anyway,
I knew when there was my cousin coming in and he was gonna play a Mexican gentleman that he would knock it out of the park.
But also George Hamilton, man, pretty good with the accents, especially 1981 version. Considering he's playing two roles here, I mean, this isn't like a great dramatic performance, but as far as like being a character actor type, I think he does a darn good job of playing those dual roles with the, I don't know, what's the term, a fit, that British accent that's so pompous. Mm-hmm. And then he's got that wonderful, I dare say, lecherous Spanish tone when he's Don Diego. I think he does a good job with the accents, coming from a person who struggles to even do his own voice as an accent.
Well, I mean, hey, I think technically he did at least 4 roles. Some could argue maybe 5 or 6. I forget the other 2 that I thought of when I was watching this, because I was like, well, here's at least, because each one plays a dual role of Zorro and himself. So.
And then there's also Margarita Wigglesworth.
There you go. That was the one I was thinking
minimum.
of.
Yeah, 5 minimum.
So minimum.
Gotten him to play the guy. I would have liked to have played Paco the mute servant. I think that would have been an easy role for me.
Oh yeah, for you that's honestly that's straight up your alley. Just a guy walking around doing these crazy wild
signals.
Hey, it's over here. All you got to do is like choose scenery. Got it.
And let me wear that fuzzy dog costume near the beginning.
Is that a dog or what is this? It's like
it is a bear with pig ears.
Now, see, I want to talk about this because this is something that like this people playing people of other ethnicities and stuff in movies, and honestly, from what I've gathered from the people that I have talked to, because like I went to film school in Orlando, so as you might imagine, we had quite the cornucopia of folk there.
Yeah, a whole lot of folks in Orlando.
And so a couple of buddies of mine that were in the class were Cuban. And I asked them because, obviously it's movie class here. Movies come up a whole bunch. And, of course, Scarface came up. Famous Scarface and Al Pacino playing Scarface. And let me tell you, they wouldn't have it any other way. They were like, that is our guy. He did a great representation of us. We love every bit of it. It's like because we brought it up, we were just like, is that cool? I mean, what do you guys think about that? And he was just like, no, it's awesome. He brought a great flair to it and everything. It's what we wanted in this. So it's not to say that like the people that are being represented can't enjoy what's there. I've literally seen it happen. Not to say that it's always welcome and it's always right, but you know, sometimes it's like, hey, we take what we can get, or somebody did us so well that we can look beyond that sort of thing. And that's what it was at least the case for this movie.
And I don't know if it's exactly a case of quid pro quo, but was it John Leguizamo that played Luigi in that Super Mario Brothers movie?
Indeed.
And his justification, you know, he said there's nothing wrong with a Hispanic actor playing an Italian guy because Al Pacino was in Scarface. So in his mind, it was 1-to-1 Scarface to Super Mario Brothers.
Well, and he was, you know, and he was in Carlito's Way with him and with Pacino as well. So, you know. Okay,
good. So that's the third degree of separation.
So it all kind of like, you know, rolls around into a big thing. But to me. And that's the thing. Back in the day, and it's still somewhat of a big deal now, is that the reason that people are brought in for this sort of thing and made to be, you know, either another gender or another race. Now, I'm not saying that these things are right, mind you, but I'm just saying what the Hollywood mindset is that these are what's going to be putting butts in seats. So we've got to attract a name to it, right? We've got to attract a face to it. And oftentimes it doesn't work. So it's just like you could have put somebody, you know, that no one knew in there, and you still wouldn't have made any less money than what you did with this famous person.
And George Hamilton produced the film, so there's not much you can say about his role. I think that where some of the discussion comes up is the role of the Esteban, the bad guy. You know, maybe that's the sort of role where you have a harder time justifying using a non-Hispanic actor all painted up. You could have, I don't know. I think the overuse of makeup and facial prosthetics and things is also part of the practice that's offensive, not just the casting. And then I don't know where the cast of peasants, did they try it? I mean, come on.
It looked like
tell me that within a block of wherever they filmed this, there wasn't enough racial diversity.
I can't say all of the cast of Millions, if you will, but I could look in the audience. I could see we have at least people of somewhat color in there. Not all of them, mind you, but there's a handful here and there that you're just like, oh, well, that's not a white person. That's not a white person. So it wasn't like it was completely that, and I know this is, maybe it shouldn't, but sometimes you just kind of go, well, I mean, if these people were on set when this was happening, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal to them. I don't know. And then they could be just like, this is a paycheck. I'm speaking completely hypothetical and out of school here, but
it's 1981 too. It's a totally different world.
Exactly. It's almost it was probably almost just expected at this point of like, oh, they're not going to get this. But you could really, what's kind of cool though when you watch this movie and you see what George Hamilton here is doing, you just go, yeah, Antonio Banderas would be a good Zorro, because he sounds like Antonio Banderas in a lot of ways. He really does.
Yeah, I think George Hamilton pulls off the Douglas Fairbanks, Errol Flynn swashbuckling performance though better than Antonio Banderas did.
Now, at the same time though, let's give a little bit while we're talking about what could have been better had they had a person of the right ethnicity and everything. Let's also give credence though to the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, this was actually the first Zorro one that actually specifically said he was a person of Latin descent.
Oh no!
Or at least portrayed as that. That's what I read that somewhere. I could be wrong.
I mean, the character. This might have been the first Zorro that ever actually lived in Spain, but the character Don Diego de la Vega from the very beginning was a Californio, which is someone who would be ethnically Mexican, living in what is now California when it was part of Mexico before a bunch of land.
Yeah, but everybody, I guess I'm more speaking of like, hey, Douglas Fairbanks is white. He's just white in this thing. Just deal with it.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's more what I meant.
And I'm pretty sure that there was an old Zorro television show where they just cast the same guy that played the Lone Ranger, and they just had him put on a different costume, even wore the same mask. Yeah. Here's your black act. Go be Zorro for a year.
So
Zorro, there might
sure.
be something to that because 1920s Zorro was the Fairbanks version. Then I don't know who played Zorro in 1940, but yeah, knowing what I know about Hollywood in those days, I would imagine that they did not go full on character actor mode.
Yeah. So, I mean, but here's the thing. Now, let's talk about how the kind of the tone of the movie and everything. Because like I said, going in, I had no idea what this was. The best that I could describe this movie is kind of Mel Brooks light.
I was going to ask you, do you think there's any possibility that sometime in the future I invent a time machine and go back and help kind of write part of this script? Because, boy, there is some cornball jokes that really hit home with me. The one I'll point out most specifically that sounds like something that I could have seen myself writing is they said, your father died, his horse was spooked by a turtle. Don't worry, we executed the turtle. Like that kind of sounds like something I would have thought was like grade A material knee slapper.
It's perfect. Yeah, I could see you in like a tweed suit back in the like
this script for you. It needs more turtle jokes.
Back in the 50s and 60s, Bruce in like a tweed suit, smoking a big cigar, just being like, I'm going to type up this script for you. Let me do. You were the punch-up man who were coming in and just giving all these really crappy little jokes in here.
Yeah. And like the one where he puts the Z on the door and he says, do you know what that is the symbol of? And the guy goes, yes, it's the number 2. He goes, no, it is not. He goes, my daughter goes to school. That's how they teach her to draw 2. Like this whole debate over whether it's a Z or a 2.
I love that bit.
Like,
that bit was hilarious to me. I'd like there are parts of this that are like little groaners and just kind of like, like very dad joke. But there are a couple that are
the idea of a sidekick, Paco the mute sidekick wearing a bad bear costume and attacking alongside him, and he thinks it's a horrible dog that's going to attack him. I love it.
Like the conversation back and forth, the jokes about the suit and everything were really, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of stuff in here that's just like for everything that you get that's like, oh, that was really funny. You get a, oh, geez, kind of thing. So it's rife with both.
Yeah, then we get the lady from Boston. Charlotte Taylor Wilson, I think is her name. Mm-hmm. And like the thing where he says, you don't smell like ship oil. And he's, he means sheep oil, but she's thinking ship and the whole back and forth there. He goes, no, like ship, bye. I'm enjoying some of this, man. And he tells her she can't be poor because a poor person couldn't afford 3 names. Like these little things, I'm loving it. Yeah. I'm eating it up, man.
Like I said, you're hitting all the good jokes. You're missing all the ones that were crummy.
Name a crummy one, man.
Oh, I can't because I try to get the crummy ones out of my mind as fast as I possibly can because I'm just like, oh, that's a not thing.
How about there's the one where like the old Spanish dude is standing next to Brenda Vaccaro and he says, look at those pants. I could never get into those. And she goes, I sure bet I can. Like, I love Brenda Vaccaro. There was one reason for all the evil that cigarettes have done. The one good thing is they gave Brenda Vaccaro that voice. That's the only good thing cigarettes ever did. Like, she seems like the lady that should be hanging out in the Regal Beagle and hitting on Jack Tripper just a little too hard when he's trying to get out of there.
That's true.
I love that actress so much, man. I've only seen 2 movies that she's been in. She killed in both of her roles that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so like he's a mute. Bueno, perhaps he could give lessons to my wife.
I love that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Again, I just
Now I guess we got to talk a little bit about Bunny Wigglesworth.
Okay. Yes.
First off, Bunny Wigglesworth from the British Navy. They're twins.
I love how the British Navy is also what turned him gay, essentially. That's pretty much what they say. It's like he goes away this when he comes back, as Mr.
the other way around. I think that the appeal of the British Navy is supposed to be, but, even YMCA sang about the Navy, man. I think that was a trope back in the 70s and 80s was that you're out at sea on a ship for 6 months with nothing but a bunch of men. There's only one way to spend your nights. I think that was a trope that we may not recognize so much today as they did in the late 70s.
Because we all know it's just true today. Watch all the Navy men get mad.
Hey, man, I've got Navy friends.
Anybody, any armed service people, they're always just dogged against whoever's not in their group.
Except for I don't know. I've never heard the Civil Air Patrol talk smack.
I was about to say any of the Air Force people, they don't talk no smack because they know they can't.
No, they're just happy, man. They got a good job. But anyway, let's talk about Bunny Wigglesworth, though. Comes back from the British Navy with a very, very British accent. So I'm assuming that Ramon, which was his name, was sent away at a rather young age to develop such an accurate British accent here, riding up in the parasol. Once again, I just thought all British people walked around with a parasol. I didn't know there's anything supposed to be funny about that.
Wait a minute, they don't?
And also as a kid, I'm not entirely sure I understood that there were two different Zorros either. I think that might have confused me a little bit as a young person. But the whole deal is...
Well, they both look alike, so that makes sense. I don't... What?
During his first foray into the Zorro business, Don Diego breaks his foot or injures his foot. So when his twin brother, Bunny Wigglesworth, shows up, Bunny has to take on the Zorro mantle. And Bunny does it with flair, too, man. I got to say, thumbs up for the upgrades to the costume that Bunny provides.
I love his idea of just like, look, man, I'll be this Zorro character. That's all fine and well, but I'm not dealing with this just black stuff anymore. I'm going crazy. I'm adding fringe to stuff. I don't care. He went all out and out, man.
Are you ready for the segment that I'm going to just start calling Feel Sorry for Bruce? Okay. We had a black and white TV when I was a kid. So I loved this movie, and I don't think I ever understood that the costumes were different colors.
Oh, my goodness.
I just thought there was some, like, fringe added to the hat. You know, the little dangly things that kind of look like a cab driver thing from the early 80s.
Yep.
So I totally missed out on the colorful nature of this. Like, this viewing may have been the first time I could appreciate the wonderful tones of the multicolored costumes that Bunny brings into play. And I also like it that Bunny... isn't any good as a swordsman, but he does mention I am pretty good with a whip, and I think that's some kind of a gay joke in 1981, though I'm not exactly sure how so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just maybe some like sort of S&M thing or something.
Yeah,
where
I
it might
think
be.
they just kind of. I think in the 80s they just thought anything other than the most boring interpretation of mommy daddy time qualified as gay.
It's like, oh well, that's he'd be into something that's a little bit outside the box.
Whips, chains, Great Danes. Anyway, so he's good with the whip, and man, I gotta say, he is able to carve a Z into a wall with the bullwhip, which is something I've never seen anyone do.
And it's so fancy looking too.
Yeah, and I like how it looks like a Z is 3 strokes. I mean, with the sword, you go 3 strokes, but with that whip, I counted he did like 27 strokes with that whip to get the Z on the wall.
Well, he's got the curves and stuff, and like because he's like
it's calligraphy, like, man. He's an artist. Bunny
like
is an artist.
Script.
Now, here's something though I do want to point out about Bunny. I want to point out a couple of things that I would dare say are progressive for 1981 in this movie.
Okay,
I'm going to try to defend this movie a little bit. First off, his twin brother, accepts him 100% for who he is.
Yep.
Did you notice that? There's never any judgment. There's never any shame. There's never any of a lot of the things that maybe you would worry about from a 19th century Spanish nobleman.
I don't even think there's like literally even like a question.
He loves his twin brother that he hasn't seen in forever and accepts him 100% as Bunny Wigglesworth.
Right off the bat, no questions asked. It's just like, okay, well, there you go.
So I know that this is not good by today's standards, but by 1981 standards, I'm pointing out some progressive things here. Also, Bunny is 100% comfortable and confident in his own skin. I wish to God I was that comfortable in my own skin as Bunny is. There's no shame on Bunny. There's no self-loathing. There's no attempt to hide who Bunny is, and I think that's pretty darn progressive for 1981.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Bunny is gay, and he is out there, boy. He does not care.
And Bunny is gay, and in 1981, I think it's hard to find a true gay action hero protagonist in 1981. But Bunny doesn't lose a fight, even when outnumbered. And at the end of the day, when Don Diego, the straight brother, is defeated, it's Bunny that shows up and saves him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say that there's going to be a lot of potential, vitriol coming at this movie because it does take a little bit too much of a broad stroke comedy approach
Mhm.
when it's dealing with some of the issues. But I'm trying to point out that compared to other things that you would have seen in 1981 dealing with a gay character, I think this is a more positive portrayal than you would expect at that time.
And think about this as well, is just from an acting standpoint, how, Mr. Ladies Man and, all that good stuff that George Hamilton was, that George Hamilton just said, you know what? I'm going to play not only myself or, the straight character who's just a suave whatever guy. I'm also going to play the outlandishly gay man as well. And, certainly didn't hurt his career.
Confidence. Yeah. And also, for 1981, this is a trope that seems commonplace by 1995. Definitely commonplace today. But the idea that the woman is attracted to the gay guy.
Mhm.
That's a trope that's probably played out. You don't see it so much now, but it shows up here. And I wonder if this might be the first time that trope appeared in cinema.
I don't know.
Because she has very little interest in Don Diego, but then she feels that she can actually talk to Bunny's version of Zorro more than she ever could to Don Diego's. And I felt like, man, it's probably hard to find something earlier than 1981 that deals with it this way.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of fun stuff that's maybe not quite of that nature or anything, but I mean, I still think one of the most oddly progressive things ever in early cinema was the end of Some Like It Hot.
I love the end of that movie, man.
I mean, it's one of the best one of the best one lines to end a movie of all time. Nobody's perfect is great.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. But once again, that's a case of mistaken identity or people pretending to be who they're not. But here, Bunny is being himself, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he's pretending to be gay. He really is. It's not like John Ritter's character from Three's Company who pretends to be gay so the landlord will let him live where he does. This is truly a gay character with Bunny. And Bunny even wins the woman for his brother. I mean, he does everything.
Yeah.
Bunny is the impossible heroic ideal in this movie, whereas Don Diego's got some flaws that Bunny doesn't have.
Yeah, he's there and he doesn't, and he does enough. But I mean, if you take Bunny out of this, the movie doesn't exist. It's over so fast.
And I also wonder, I mean, George Hamilton was a star and he helped produce this, but he wasn't like the kind of star that can get anything he wants made. You know what I mean? Like, he still has to pitch this to Columbia. Was it Columbia Pictures?
20th Century Fox.
20th Century Fox. He still has to pitch this to 20th Century Fox, and they have to approve it. He's not, I don't know, like Paul Newman would have been in 1981, perhaps,
no,
or even Dustin Hoffman. You know what I mean? He's still got to pitch it, and you can tell they made it cheap, and he produced it, but I kind of wonder how that
they
pitch
didn't make
went
it
to
that cheap. This was $12 million in 1981. Now, it made no money at the box office. It made just over $5 million. So this was a bomb for sure.
I would have thought it was cheaper than $12 million, but I'm not always good at that. I'm suspecting that
you got to remember
that
period
George Hamilton
piece.
double dipped in the salary. He got paid $2 million for the role of Don Diego and $2 million for the role of Bunny.
He did if he's smart.
But anyway, I kind of think this would have been a tough pitch. You're pitching it in 79 or 80 to get it out there by 81. So I imagine this was a tough pitch too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, okay, check it out. We're going to do Zorro, right? But he's going to have a gay twin brother. And they're like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We're not doing that. But it's going to be a comedy. Yeah, no, still a no on that one. So, yeah, I don't know how he pulled it off, but good job to get somebody to give you that much money.
What about Lauren Hutton? I mean, was she a star?
Yeah, Lauren Hutton was pretty much a star at this point, yeah.
Okay, because I don't think I know much of her work. It's like one of those names that's sort of familiar, but maybe I'm thinking of E.F. Hutton, the old insurance company or whatever. When E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens.
Come on down to E.F. Hutton. We've got French bread.
And this is 1981, but she seems like a leading lady from 1967. Like, she seems like Maureen O'Hara playing across from John Wayne. You know what I mean? She seems like she fits maybe a style, and maybe it's because this movie's kind of a Western that makes me feel that way, but she seems like she is playing a role the way it would have been played 15 years before this. I feel like she's in a different movie than everybody else.
Well, I mean, that was kind of like more her era there was like early 70s, mid 70s and stuff like that. So like it's kind of where she sort of came from and everything.
Because I know famously Stanley Kubrick didn't tell George C. Scott that Dr. Strangelove was a comedy. So he's playing this movie straight and it makes it that much more hilarious. But I feel like...
Now, I'm not saying we're not going to get a hair must. One of my favorite lines in that entire... it's so funny. Gosh, she's so good in that.
I kind of feel like Lauren Hutton didn't realize what movie she was making. Like, I feel like she thinks she's really making a straight Zorro movie.
But I think that's a good... To me, I think that's a good thing, though. I think you have to place... somebody's got to play straight in this thing. No pun intended.
Paco should have played it straight.
Paco was the most over the top thing in the movie, and this has a gay Zorro with chandeliers over his brim of his hat.
I want you to guess at what my favorite sight gag was in this whole movie, because I've got one that, like, if there was only one scene stuck in my memory from 1985, which is probably when I was watching this on network TV. There's one particular scene that's a sight gag that I love, and I think it works perfectly, and I can't believe nobody's done it before or since.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Man, the little old lady with the gigantic box on her back. And she comes up with a letter in her hand and the gigantic box on her back. And Don Diego says, "Oh, you didn't have to carry that all the way upstairs. I could have went down and got it. Here, give it to me." And he takes the letter and pays no attention to that. Like, it looks like a coffin.
Yeah.
And that poor old lady's like 4'8", 4'9", and 172 years old. And he's having her, put it over there by the books. No, by the window. No, by the piano.
Yeah.
You know what? I like it better by the window. No, by the books. I love that little old lady just lugging that big old box around.
That's great old school kind of, and again, I'll keep saying this because I think it bears repeating that this is Mel Brooksian style, sort of comedy, and I think they're very much pulling from his kind of vibe for this movie. And not for nothing, I think if he did this movie, it would probably be like, up there with one of his movies.
And I've just got a thought, man. You know how they did Alien versus Predator? Mm-hmm. You know how they did Freddy versus Jason? I want to see Zorro the Gay Blade versus Blazing Saddles.
I'd watch that.
Oh, I'd watch the heck out of that.
I'd watch that in a second. Oh, yeah.
But no Spaceballs.
Now, so here's a big thing. What did you think about Mr. Lieber, let's just say, screaming all of his lines?
That made sense. The guy's wound up.
It's so great. It's over the top. It is just like he's basically it's just so, it's nuts. It's just,
I love the part where Zorro cuts his pants off and he's running around with his pants down. I mean, everything's great, man. Lieber's given some good lines, and I love his delivery. We'll just have to agree that the casting probably wasn't wise, but we'll have to take what we got. But I loved what he gave us.
I mean, look, it's, to me, it's just, as much as there was, I tried to almost kind of go like, well, let's see what's wrong with this thing. And as many things as I was just like, well, that's just not great. The other times I'm going, it's not bad. It was like we're literally playing a tennis match of good, not so good.
And I also, going to the very beginning when we first meet, and I'll tell you, I hadn't seen this since childhood. So when we open up in Madrid and Don Diego is in bed with some other man's wife, and I'm confused because I did not remember the twin brother aspect. I thought, I could have sworn like Zorro was really gay. Is he just going to pretend to be gay? Is he just pretending not to be gay? Then later on, it all started to click when the twin brother Bunny Wigglesworth showed up. But at the beginning, man, I was like wondering if I totally remembered this movie wrong. And then the guy with the top hat that looks like they had to pick the most non-George Hamilton actor available to play the jealous husband that comes in with the top hat and the sideburns, and the whole sword fight starts. He says, "I could fight 4 of you." And he says, "Too bad, I brought my 5 brothers." I mean, it's fun from the beginning.
Oh, did I say 5? 4? Maybe I should not have been so overzealous.
I like swashbuckling stuff, too. I used to love to watch old Errol Flynn movies on TBS way back when they would show that sort of thing. I've probably, somewhere along the line, seen some Douglas Fairbanks action. One of the highlights of The Princess Bride, of course, is the sword fight, between the Dread Pirate Roberts and Inigo Montoya. There's no question that was inspired by Errol Flynn and Douglas Fairbanks. So I love that kind of swashbuckling, and this movie gives us plenty of it. And they treat it legitimately. Even though the movie's a comedy, they have really good swashbuckling sword fights.
Now, I know this one had to be right up your alley with all the the guys from all the other places out there in California.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Bakersfield.
here's Don Diego from San Fernando, Don Francisco from San Jose, Don Fernando from San Diego, Don Jose is from San Bernardino, whilst Don Luis Obispo is from Bakersfield.
I love that. I did like that. I was hoping they would have had somebody from Rancho Cucamonga too, because I would have definitely made Rancho Cucamonga a part of this movie if I was part of the
That's how you roll the R's.
Rancho Cucamonga.
Oh, very impressive, Bruce. Looks like
Yeah,
you may
man,
have.
It's one of my 3 favorite California towns.
I was like the any of the towns Bugs Bunny ended up saying I was automatically a fan of. You know, should have taken that left.
Pismo Beach, you're telling me.
Pismo Beach, left turn at Albuquerque, you name it.
Yeah.
Just always a blast there. But look. Here's the thing: the fighting and stuff is pretty decent. It's nothing above and beyond, your wildest expectations or anything. But this movie, look, it's an hour and a half long, but it's good enough. It's not horrible, but
and it's on YouTube. Anybody who wants to can watch this for free anywhere, anytime, any place. It's on YouTube in a very high quality format for YouTube.
That's what I was shocked at. I watched it elseways, but I wish I would have watched it on YouTube because it looks fantastic there. So, at least of DVD quality over there on YouTube. Just look up Zorro the Gay Blade. It's quite simple for you. No problems there. Bruce, you think anything else we need to cover?
Well, to be honest, the biggest thing I'm curious about is if there's any way this sucker could relate to Sylvester Stallone, because I just don't think it could happen.
Oh, well, thank you, Bruce. I happen to have a prepared statement.
You don't say.
Well, this week we saw a movie in which the star's most notable attribute today is the fact that he looks like a piece of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Carolina Gold.
By the way, kids, Kentucky Fried Chicken is what we used to call KFC before we knew chugging up straight down canola oil would have adverse effects to one's health. So what do you do with George just 5 more minutes in the tanning bed Hamilton when he looks like a sweet breast meat of KFC? Why, you put him in the Colonel's uniform and plop him into a KFC commercial selling honey gold chicken or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
But because George Hamilton is, he's that sweet golden brown, makes sense. All right, so someone got a raise for that marketing idea. I'll tell you that much. George Hamilton is a joke here in 2017, but he's always been a guy you could go to for comedy. What did I write there? Well, so get it. What did I write? I don't even know how this sentence was. Zorro the Gay Blade, on account of 3 years earlier, he did the same thing. Oh, a go-to. I should write that down. So you
gotcha.
So the go-to for Zorro the Gay Blade, on account of 3 years earlier, he did the same thing with Dracula, take a serious character and make it humorous. George Hamilton has 119 acting credits to his name. The man is no slouch. From playing Evel Knievel in a movie of the same name to things like Roots and Death Car on the Freeway. Tell me that's not range. That range is called into play when you have to star in a show that saves HMP's bacon week after week, Las Vegas. George Hamilton played Bernard Taylor on Las Vegas, and while I haven't seen it, I'm sure the role was very George Hamilton. And as we've stated many a time on this here program, they've helped who's helped out Las Vegas. As you know, let's start again, take 2. As we've stated on this program many a time, Las Vegas helps us out. You know who helped out Las Vegas, though? The man voted most handsome as Fraggle, Sylvester Stallone. As we've said many times, Sylvester Stallone plays Frank the Repairman, but we can never thank Stallone for guesting on this show that has helped HMP so very, very much over these years. Now, Sly, I know you're listening. You've got to be in more shows like this, okay? How about a stint on any one of the Law and Orders? Maybe a guy who has something to do with, I don't know, boxing. I know you always seem to say yes to those roles, so why don't you think about it, okay? It would really help us out here in stretching these bits week over week, because there's only so many times we can go back to Las Vegas or get Carter. We need a couple of more things. Being things other folks have been in, we'd really appreciate it. It would save us a lot of digging. So there you have it, HMPers, this week's Stallone Connection. Now, Mr. Wigglesworth, let's rate this bad boy so we can get back to doing what we do best, swinging from chandeliers.
This Is Us.
What now?
This Is Us. It's a TV show that Sylvester Stallone was a guest on an episode this season.
Oh, is that right? Well, yeah, I think I've seen that in something, but
he plays himself, and he does a decent job.
Well, there you have it. Okay, good.
Okay,
More stuff
so
like
back
this,
to
Stallone.
I would rate this.
Because I think we have seen people in that show that actually may help a lot of a back and forth. So thanks for that update. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, to this show that we talked about, Zorro the Gay Blade, Bunny is the hero of this story by any metric. Bunny Wigglesworth. I know it's gonna, it's gonna deserve some heat for what we now call appropriation, cultural appropriation. The whole idea that George Hamilton is indeed neither Spanish nor Mexican nor Californio.
Could have fooled me.
Yeah, and also. Some people will say that it was taking the gay character and just making him a source of humor and a punchline. But I do think that Bunny is the hero. I think that for 1981 in particular, it was a progressive portrayal. And I understand that this movie in no way, shape, or form gets made today. But that doesn't keep me from loving it. I've loved this movie for most of the years I've been alive. I listened to this movie on cassette tape, Adam. Could you imagine that? I'm giving this a Dick Grayson, and there's no way around it.
My goodness. All right. For me, this one, it's interesting because I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I was right there in the middle, but I don't know if I can go so far as to give this a Damian Wayne. So I've decided to kind of split the difference and give this bad boy a Carrie Kelly. So that one is something that's neither necessarily good nor bad, but certainly has its place and will be good to a particular type of audience. I say this with love. This is a movie your dad would like. I promise you your dad would sit down and roar at this flick. He'd love it. I don't care what your age is either. Your dad would love this. All right.
Man, I'm going to confess something to you. I like this movie better than the original Superman.
Wow.
Continue. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, that's it. I don't know that I can add anything to that. My goodness.
It might be the best retro movie we've ever watched because I am now officially a dad. Yeah. I have 3 kids, and you're dead on right about what you said.
Yeah.
Your dad will love this movie.
Your dad will love this film.
If you watch it and don't like it, go out and have a kid, then check it out. See if it.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it'll be like just a magical like little just dusting of dad will be on top of you, and you'll be like, I think I like this Zorro the Gay Blade movie.
Oh, and you'll start saying things like, "Hello, thirsty. You look just like hungry." I thought your name was Kevin.
This is what we deal with on a regular basis with this guy, everybody. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I can't. So that is it, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode. And thank you to the people that go to patreon.com/HMP and voted on this bad boy. RocketFace, as I said in the early show, get a lottery ticket, my friend, because I don't think you could do any better this week. You're in the HMP book. You've finally gotten your Zorro the Gay Blade out. It's just, you can't go better than this. But we're going to try. We're going to try because next week has become kind of an HMP tradition around here. It was thrown out the first year as like, hey, you know what would be funny is if every year we reviewed one of these Crow movies, because we reviewed the first Crow on the first year of HMP on Halloween, and Bruce did that as a joke. And at first, when you said it, it was like, this is the worst idea anyone could possibly have. And then it was like 2 or 3 weeks went by, and I'm like, it's the worst idea, but it's the best idea. So last year, we reviewed The Crow 2. So what are we going to do this year? That's right, everybody, The Crow 3.
Help us, everyone. Pray for us.
It's, oh boy, let me tell you. And we're hoping to get Sean back for this one because it's an annual tradition at this point. Bruce, didn't you say you were going to call him out?
I'm going to challenge him to a dance-off if he doesn't show up.
Dance off. And frankly, I don't know what you guys, you may or may not have seen Bruce dance. I'm going to tell you, very rerun-esque.
Exactly.
Which is to say, amazing. So, doesn't matter what time he wants to record, when he wants to do it, we will do this. So, I don't forget what the third one's called. It's just called the Third Crow movie. What do you want from us?
Crow 3, the third one.
The third one. Hey, here's the deal. As bad as this one is going to be, I think the next one, and yeah, I think there's a next one if memory serves. I think
there's either the next one or we have to start going to episodes of the TV series.
Oh gosh, I forgot about this one. Yeah, I forgot about that there was a TV series. So there was the Crow. Which one is this? Is this Salvation or City of Angels? City of Angels. Salvation is this one.
Yeah, this is Salvation. City of Angels was the one with the Spanish crow.
Right. Yeah. So this the next, but the one after that. I think has what's his face in it from Terminator 2. Eddie Furlong.
Or not? Yeah, boy, I'm thinking totally different. Horrible child.
Yeah,
Eddie Furlong.
Yeah, the next one after that has Eddie Furlong in it, and that's all you got to know right there. So
looking forward.
So H&P is gonna keep going for a long time, kids. So that's next week. Crow 3, everybody. In the meantime, something special has happened, everybody. You know, we talk about a lot of things on this program, a lot of projects that we all have, side projects and this and that and the other. But something has come about in this last week. We've kind of had like a soft launch here. In my opinion, this here's the hard launch. Bruce, where can we find more of your work, sir?
Nerd Spawn Genesis. It is my newest book, available as an ebook, available as a paperback. On Amazon, of course. And in case you're curious, Nerd Spawn Genesis is the first official foray into the Leslieverse. The Leslieverse is that bizarre alternate universe that's populated by the absurd heroes and villains that I come up with here on the show. And by the nature of that universe, that means it's also occupied by Adam, Sean, and myself in an alternate version that could accurately be described as three-man children. Do you think? Because you've read a couple chapters, Adam.
Yeah.
Is that a fair description?
Yeah, very much.
And it's Krista Zombie, one of our good Patreon supporters, has already read it. She read it the night it was released, absolutely loved it. She assures me that fans of the show will love it. The totally true adventures of Adam, Sean, and myself in the Leslieverse. This particular book, Nerd Spawn Genesis, contains the secret origin of Little Steel. It also includes an appearance from Constantine. There's a tangle with Man in Bear Suit. It turns out Man in Bear Suit's a big fan of Family Feud, by the way. It is written specifically for the podcast fans. It's chock full of laughs. It's enrolled in Kindle Unlimited, so Kindle Unlimited subscribers can read for free. Otherwise, the ebook is only $2.99. That's the price of a single issue of a DC comic on Comixology. However, this is a full-length 60,000-word novel. The paperback is $7.99. I finally got my paperback in the mail today on a Sunday, believe it or not. And, man, it looks good. It feels good. I'm so proud of this paperback. You'll love it. I really want to encourage people to go out and read it. At the very least, if you go to Amazon, there's this thing. You click on the cover, and it lets you read, like, the first 2.5 chapters, like, free. So if nothing else, just read those chapters, man, and tell me if you like it or not.
Frankly, I think they'll be hooked at that point, because like once you start getting on that road, you'll start just going, and especially if you're a listener to this show. That's the thing. By and large, this is like one of the biggest in jokes that, and the longer you've been listening to H&P, the better. And if you don't get a thing, you may go back and listen to like an older episode and go, that's where that came from, you know, because trust me, this thing is chock-a-block full with that stuff.
I've already gotten my first 5-star review on Amazon from Krista, so thank you very much for that. I'll let everybody else know I could use some reviews on this. This is one I have high hopes for, so I could use kind of like the 10 5-star reviews as a magic number to help me promote it better on Amazon, so I could use that as well. But everyone, Nerd Spawn Genesis, just search Amazon for Nerd Spawn. It is the only Nerd Spawn product out there. It's all one word, NERDSPAWN. And guess what, Adam? If this is a hit, if people like this and they ask for another book, I've already got one in mind. I've got Nerd Spawn Nemesis to follow up Genesis, and Nerd Spawn Time Warp could be the third one. So
Here's
I really
the thing,
want folks
everybody. When you look at the book on the thing, everywhere you look on it, it says book 1. That means there's going to be more. And you know how you get more? Go buy the darn book. It's $3 for heaven's sake. Or if you want a physical copy, and that which is what I'm doing. I'm buying physical copies for everyone that I know and giving them out as gifts and signing them like a weird pompous idiot who had to sit back and do nothing for the book. But I can be like, this is basically it's a fictionalized autobiography of myself. If you'd like to have that, here's my autograph on top of it. Sell it to you, so keep that for the kids later on in the future.
And I call it totally true fiction because it's an adventure story, but man, it feels real, doesn't it?
There's a lot here that just goes like, I didn't do this, but boy, it feels like this feels like I was there. Very accurate.
So help me out, folks. I could really use a little support on this one, more so than the other books. And also, I just want to plug Sean's new Twitter account at Bunny Wigglesworth.
And, of course, my other podcast, The Film Find at thefilmfind.com. Boy, oh boy, are we reviewing nothing but bad movies over there this week, everybody. We got The Snowman. We got the Boo Medea 2 movie. We got, what's the other piece of junk? Geostorm.
Yeah.
We're watching nothing
word could replace Geo on that one.
Oh, we're watching nothing but garbage over there, man. So we're doing it so you don't have to. Usually those end up being funny reviews, though. So head over to thefilmfind.com and jump on that one today. And I'm usually doing Nerd Talk Now on Monday evenings at 10 p.m. That seems to be where a lot of people are getting on down with it, man. So head on over to nerdtalknow.com. That'll lead you directly to the Twitch page. And thanks for those that kind of hang out and check all that out, man. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for The Crow 3. Lord help us all. For the absent Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Goodbye, Marty and Evie.